A disabled girl cried alone on a Texas road, until a cowboy stopped, and everything changed. The sun was high in the Texas sky, beating down on the long, empty road that stretched endlessly into the horizon. The heat shimmered off the asphalt, making the distant trees and fences look wavy and unreal. On the side of this road, alone and almost invisible, sat a young girl named Emma. She was only 16, but life had already thrown her many challenges. Born with a physical disability, she had always relied on her wheelchair to move around. Most days, she could manage her independence, but today was different. Today, she felt trapped and completely helpless. Emma had been heading to visit her grandmother in a town several miles away. It wasn't far for someone with a car, but for her, it had been a journey she had planned carefully for weeks. She had packed her small backpack with water, snacks, and a notebook where she scribbled stories and drawings. But somewhere along the road, disaster had struck. Her wheelchair's wheel had broken. One moment she had been moving along the pavement, enjoying the soft morning breeze, and the next, the wheel had twisted in a way it never should. The wheelchair had tilted and clanged to a stop. Emma had tried to fix it herself, twisting and pulling at the metal frame, but nothing worked. She was not strong enough to lift it or replace the wheel alone. As she sat there, the heat pressed against her skin, and beads of sweat ran down her forehead. Emma felt a knot of fear tighten in her stomach. She looked around at the empty road. Not a single car passed by. No house, no gas station, no friendly passerby, only the endless stretch of highway and the occasional whisper of wind. She felt smaller than ever, like a tiny figure swallowed by the vast Texas landscape. Her eyes filled with tears, which she tried to hold back. But when she realized she was utterly alone, she let them fall freely. A quiet sob escaped her lips, muffled by the hot air but loud enough to echo in her own ears. Her mind wandered and the emotions tumbled over one another. Why had this happened now? She had always been careful, always prepared. But life sometimes had a way of testing you in the hardest ways. She felt frustrated, not just at her wheelchair, but at her own vulnerability. Why couldn't she just walk like other kids? Why did her body make simple tasks so difficult? For a moment, she thought about giving up, about curling into herself and waiting for someone to find her, though she didn't know if anyone would ever come. The thought of being alone forever on this road terrified her. The isolation wasn't just physical, it felt like the world had forgotten her. Emma tried to distract herself. She picked up her notebook and opened it to a blank page, hoping to write something to pass the time. But her hands shook too much from exhaustion and fear, and the words refused to come. She stared down at the paper, her pen hovering uselessly above it. All she could do was look around and wonder if anyone would ever see her here. The fields stretched out on either side, dry and golden in the sunlight. A few birds flew overhead, their shadows flickering across the cracked asphalt, but they were no help. The wind rustled the tall grass along the roadside, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. It was beautiful in its own way, but it made her feel even more alone. Hours seemed to pass, though she had no watch to tell the time. The sun moved slowly across the sky, casting long shadows over the road. Emma's water bottle was nearly empty, and she had eaten her last snack hours ago. Her stomach ached from hunger, but more than that, her heart ached from loneliness. She thought about her family who were far away. Her parents were at work, and her grandmother was in the next town, unaware of the trouble Emma had run into. The thought of calling them crossed her mind, but her phone's battery had died during the journey, leaving her without even that connection to the outside world. For the first time, she felt completely cut off from help, from kindness, from hope. Yet, despite everything, there was a small spark inside her that refused to go out. Emma wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She reminded herself that she had faced hard times before. She had learned to be brave, to keep going even when the world seemed against her. But today, bravery felt different. Today, it wasn't about pushing herself through obstacles she could control. It was about surviving the ones she couldn't. She tried to keep her mind busy, counting the cracks in the road, imagining stories about the birds flying above, and thinking of the little things that had made her smile that week. A song she loved, a joke her friend had sent, the feeling of the warm sun on her face. These small memories became her lifeline, a thread connecting her to a world that still existed beyond this lonely stretch of asphalt. Even as fear and frustration weighed her down, Emma's mind drifted to thoughts of hope. She remembered that life often had unexpected turns, moments when strangers appeared in just the right place at just the right time. She tried to believe that maybe, somehow, someone would come along. Maybe someone kind would stop and help her. It felt almost impossible to hold on to that thought as the hours passed and no car approached, but she clung to it anyway. It was a small, fragile hope, but it was enough to keep her from giving in to despair. Emma also thought about the people she had met in her life who had shown her kindness. Her teachers, friends, and family had often gone out of their way to make her feel included, to help her when she struggled. She realized that even though she was alone on this road, she had experienced goodness before, and that gave her courage. Maybe this was just one more challenge she could survive. Maybe she was stronger than she felt at this very moment. The road remained silent for a long while, except for the occasional rustle of grass or the distant sound of a bird calling. Emma's legs ached from being in the same position too long, and her back protested against the hard seat of her wheelchair. The sun had begun to dip slightly, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and gold, turning the empty fields into a breathtaking landscape. For a brief moment, the beauty of the world seemed to clash with her sadness, reminding her that life could be harsh and beautiful at the same time. She felt a mix of awe and sorrow, realizing that even in the darkest moments, there was still light. As the sky started to change colors, Emma's resolve grew. She decided she would not let this road defeat her. Even if no one came immediately, she would stay alert, make herself visible, and keep hoping. She scanned the horizon, willing her eyes to catch the sight of any vehicle or figure in the distance. Every passing car became a heartbeat of anticipation. Every sound made her hope jump a little higher. She reminded herself that help could come from the most unexpected place, and that maybe, just maybe, her day was about to change. Emma's cries had quieted, but her eyes still glistened with tears. She leaned back slightly, looking at the vast Texas sky, and whispered to herself, "Someone will come." It was a simple promise, but in that lonely moment, it felt like a lifeline. She had no idea who that person would be, what they would look like, or when they would arrive, but she believed in the kindness of strangers and the possibility of miracles. And deep down, she knew that even if the world seemed big and empty, it still had room for hope, courage, and unexpected friendship. The sun continued to sink lower, casting long shadows across the road. Emma waited, tired but determined. She had faced her fear, her loneliness, and her frustration, and though it had been one of the hardest days of her life, she refused to give up. Somewhere down that long, empty Texas road, her life was about to take a turn she could never have imagined. But for now, she sat alone, watching the horizon, holding on to hope, and waiting for the moment when someone would finally stop and change everything. Emma had been sitting on the side of the road for what felt like hours, her small frame hunched over her broken wheelchair, her hands resting on the handles as if she could somehow will it to move. The sky was turning a brilliant shade of orange and pink as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. Shadows stretched across the asphalt, and the empty fields on either side of the road seemed almost alive, whispering in the wind. Emma's hope had started to flicker, the long hours of waiting and the quiet isolation pressing heavily on her. But just when her spirits were near their lowest, a sound broke the silence. It was the faint rumble of a truck engine in the distance. At first, Emma wasn't sure if she imagined it, but the vibration of the tires on the road confirmed that someone was coming. She squinted down the stretch of asphalt, her eyes straining to see anything against the glowing backdrop of the setting sun. Then she saw it, a dusty pickup truck slowly approaching, kicking up little clouds of dirt as it moved. Her heart leapt. Could this be the help she had been hoping for? Could someone finally stop for her? The truck rolled closer, and Emma noticed the figure behind the wheel. He was a man wearing a wide-brimmed cowboy hat and a plaid shirt, his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong, tanned arms. He moved with a calm confidence, his hands steady on the wheel. The truck slowed as it neared her, and Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She waved her hands, hoping he could see her. The truck pulled over gently to the side of the road, kicking up a little dust as it stopped a few feet away from her. The man climbed out of the truck with a quiet grace. He was tall, with kind eyes that seemed to understand right away that she needed help. He didn't rush, didn't ask unnecessary questions. Instead, he walked steadily toward her, giving her space but showing he was ready to assist. Emma's heart raced, a mixture of relief and nervousness. She had been alone for so long that the idea of someone stopping to help almost seemed unreal. "Hey there," the man said in a warm, calm voice. "Are you okay?" Emma tried to speak, but her throat felt dry and the words caught in her chest. She nodded, tears still glistening in her eyes. "My wheelchair, it broke," she managed to say. "I don't know what to do." The man crouched down to her level, studying the wheelchair carefully. He didn't rush to touch it or move it. Instead, he assessed the situation quietly, taking in the bent wheel, the loose bolts, and the way the frame had shifted. "Looks like you've had a rough day," he said softly. "Don't worry, we'll get you sorted out." Emma felt a small surge of hope. There was something comforting about the way he spoke, not pitying, not rushed, just calm and reassuring. She had spent hours feeling helpless, and now, in the presence of this kind stranger, she felt a little of her strength return. The man introduced himself as Jake, a local cowboy who knew these roads well. He had spent his life working on ranches and traveling the countryside, so helping someone in need was something he was used to. But he wasn't just doing it out of habit. There was genuine kindness in his eyes, a willingness to stop and make a difference. He asked Emma about her situation gently, and she explained where she was going, how the wheelchair had broken, and how she had been stranded for hours. Jake listened carefully, nodding, asking questions only when necessary, making her feel heard and understood. After listening, Jake knelt beside the wheelchair. "I can't fix this completely out here," he said honestly, pointing at the damaged wheel. "But we can make sure you're safe and get you somewhere that can help." He looked up at her, a reassuring smile on his face. "Do you think you can trust me to help you?" Emma hesitated for a moment, her heart still fluttering with anxiety. But something about his calm, steady demeanor convinced her. She nodded. "Yes, thank you," she whispered. Jake carefully helped her out of the wheelchair and lifted her into the passenger seat of his truck. Emma's legs trembled as she settled in, and she felt a mixture of nervousness and relief. The truck smelled faintly of leather, dust, and hay, a comforting reminder of open fields and wide skies. She buckled in and Jake climbed into the driver's seat, starting the engine with a gentle roar. The truck moved smoothly down the road, carrying them both toward safety. As they drove, Emma's fear began to ease. She watched the scenery roll by, fields of tall grass swaying in the evening breeze, distant hills painted in shades of gold and purple, and the occasional silhouette of a tree against the glowing sky. The world seemed vast and beautiful, and for the first time in hours, she felt she was not alone in it. Jake spoke quietly, making small talk at first, asking about her journey, where she was going, and what she liked to do. Emma's voice grew stronger as she answered, and soon they were talking more openly. She told him about her love for drawing and writing stories, about the small victories she had in her daily life, and about her dream of exploring the world despite her disability. Jake listened intently, occasionally smiling or nodding, encouraging her to keep speaking. Then Jake shared a little about himself. He talked about growing up on a ranch, learning to ride horses before he could even walk properly, and spending long days helping with chores and livestock. He spoke of the beauty of open land, the quiet satisfaction of hard work, and the importance of kindness and respect for others. Emma found herself drawn to his stories, imagining the wide fields, the animals, and the quiet life of a cowboy. His voice was calm and steady, like the rhythm of the truck moving down the road, and it made her feel safe. As the conversation continued, Emma realized that this stranger, this cowboy who had stopped for her when no one else had, was changing the way she saw her situation. She had been filled with fear and doubt, believing she was helpless and alone. But now, with Jake beside her, she felt a new kind of strength. She could feel hope returning, like a small flame flickering back to life. At one point, the truck passed a small creek, the water glistening in the evening light. Emma leaned toward the window, watching the reflection of the sky ripple across the surface. She took a deep breath, feeling the wind on her face, and allowed herself a small smile. Jake glanced at her and smiled too, a quiet acknowledgement of the moment. It was a simple gesture, but it made Emma feel seen, not just as someone in need of help, but as a person, a young girl with dreams and stories and a life waiting to unfold. Jake kept the pace slow and steady, making sure Emma was comfortable and safe. He pointed out small things along the road, a family of deer grazing in a field, a red-tailed hawk circling above, the changing colors of the sky. Emma listened with fascination, feeling the tension in her shoulders slowly melt away. She realized that even in a moment that had started in despair, there could be beauty, connection, and kindness. The more they talked, the more Emma felt her fears begin to dissolve. She no longer thought of herself as stranded or helpless. Instead, she felt a sense of partnership with Jake, a quiet understanding that she was not alone and that someone cared enough to stop and help her. It was a feeling she had rarely experienced so fully, a combination of safety, respect, and genuine human connection. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of orange, pink, and purple, Jake pointed toward a small town in the distance. "We're almost there," he said. Emma felt a rush of gratitude. She had been stranded, worried, and exhausted, but now she could see the promise of help and safety ahead. Even as the darkness began to settle over the road, Emma no longer felt afraid. She felt something stronger, a renewed sense of hope, the warmth of kindness, and the incredible relief that comes from knowing someone cares. Jake had stopped when it mattered most, and in doing so, he had not only helped her physically, but had touched her heart in a way she would never forget. By the time they reached the edge of the town, Emma's spirit felt lighter. She could see lights twinkling from houses and shops, a reminder that the world was full of people, many of whom would help if they could. She looked at Jake, her eyes filled with gratitude, and realized that sometimes life's challenges could bring unexpected miracles. A simple act of stopping on a quiet Texas road had begun to change everything. The small town ahead of them grew clearer as Jake guided the truck down the last stretch of the dusty road. Emma looked out the window, her heart lifting with every passing moment. The lights of the town were gentle and warm against the darkening sky, promising safety, help, and a break from the long, lonely day she had endured. For hours, she had felt helpless, stranded, and small in the wide Texas landscape. But now, sitting beside Jake, she felt a growing sense of relief and even a spark of excitement. Jake slowed the truck as they approached the town, pointing out familiar landmarks along the way. "There's the general store," he said, his voice calm. "And just past it is my cousin's workshop. They can fix almost anything, especially wheelchairs." He glanced at Emma with a reassuring smile. "We'll have you back on your wheels in no time." Emma felt a wave of gratitude. It wasn't just about the physical help, though that mattered a great deal, but also about the kindness and patience Jake had shown since the moment he stopped on that lonely road. He had treated her like a person, not a burden, and that simple respect had lifted a heavy weight from her heart. As the truck rumbled along, Emma began to relax further. The warmth of the truck's interior, the steady hum of the engine, and Jake's gentle conversation made her feel safe for the first time in hours. She began to share more about herself, her voice gaining confidence as the trust between them grew. She talked about school, her friends, and her favorite hobbies. She told Jake how much she loved drawing and writing stories, and how her wheelchair, though sometimes a challenge, allowed her independence she cherished. Jake listened closely, occasionally asking questions to understand better and occasionally commenting with admiration. "You know, Emma, it takes a lot of courage to do what you do every day," he said. "I think a lot of people would give up if they were in your shoes or in your wheels, I guess." His attempt at humor made Emma giggle, a light, airy sound that felt good after so many hours of stress and fear. The conversation soon shifted to Jake's life. He told Emma about growing up on a ranch, where he learned to ride horses before he could even walk properly. He spoke of early mornings feeding cattle, long days working in the sun, and the satisfaction of completing a hard day's work. Emma listened with fascination, imagining the wide fields, the open skies, and the rhythm of a life so different from her own. She felt a connection with him, a bond forming over shared stories and the quiet understanding that life had its struggles for everyone, though they came in very different forms. As the truck continued, Emma noticed how careful Jake was on the road. He navigated curves gently, slowed for uneven patches of pavement, and always checked to make sure she was comfortable. It was a small detail, but it mattered deeply to Emma. She realized that true kindness wasn't just about words. It was about actions, consistency, and attentiveness. She felt seen and valued, something she hadn't felt fully all day. They drove through the outskirts of town, passing small houses with lights glowing in the windows. Children's laughter echoed faintly from a nearby playground, and the smell of freshly baked bread from a corner bakery reached them as they passed. Emma's stomach rumbled, reminding her she hadn't eaten much since morning. Jake noticed and pulled over near a small convenience store. "Why don't we get you something to eat?" he suggested. "You need your energy, and it's not safe to drive or roll on an empty stomach." Emma smiled shyly and nodded. She hadn't expected anyone to think about such things, simple, practical kindness, but it warmed her heart. Together they went inside. The store was small but welcoming, with shelves of snacks, bottled water, and little treats. Jake helped Emma pick out a sandwich, some fruit, and a bottle of water. As she ate, she felt her energy return slowly, her spirits lifting further with each bite. When they were done, Jake suggested they head to his cousin's workshop. "It's not far," he said, leading her back to the truck. "You'll be back on your wheelchair before you know it." Emma felt a flutter of excitement. The thought of being mobile again, even just a little, gave her hope and renewed strength. As they drove, the conversation turned to lighter topics. Emma asked Jake about the horses he had mentioned earlier, and he told her stories of his favorite animals, funny moments on the ranch, and even a few times when things didn't go as planned. Emma laughed, the sound bright and musical, echoing in the quiet of the truck. For the first time since she had been stranded, she felt a genuine sense of joy, a reminder that even in difficult times, laughter and connection were possible. The journey also allowed Emma to reflect on her own life and the challenges she faced. She realized that moments like this, unexpected, kind interventions from strangers, could change her outlook completely. Just a few hours ago, she had felt hopeless and invisible. Now she felt seen, valued, and supported. She realized that kindness didn't have to be grand gestures. Sometimes it was simply about showing up, offering help, and treating someone with respect. Finally, they arrived at the small workshop. Jake guided the truck into a quiet corner near the entrance. The workshop was modest but well kept, with tools neatly arranged and a few mechanical projects in progress. His cousin, a cheerful and friendly man named Hank, was already waiting. He greeted Jake warmly, and when he saw Emma and her broken wheelchair, his eyes softened. "Looks like we've got a little work to do," he said kindly. "Don't worry, we'll have her rolling again in no time." Emma felt a surge of relief. The tension that had gripped her shoulders all day began to melt away. She realized that she was finally in a place where she would be helped, where her needs would be met, and where she could regain some independence. Jake helped her carefully out of the truck and into the workshop, making sure she was steady and comfortable. The air inside was cooler than outside, and the smell of oil and metal, surprisingly, felt reassuring. While Hank began assessing the wheelchair, Jake stayed with Emma, talking quietly to keep her calm. They discussed the process, what would be done, and how long it might take. Emma felt included in every decision, her opinions valued and respected. She realized that this was another layer of kindness, not just fixing the problem, but treating her with dignity while doing so. As the repair work began, Jake and Emma continued talking. She shared more about her dreams, stories she hoped to write, places she wished to visit, and the ways she wanted to make a difference in the world. Jake listened intently, offering encouragement and gentle advice. "You know," he said, "life will always throw challenges at you, but it's the people who stop and help along the way who make it easier. And sometimes, even strangers can become friends who change your life." Emma smiled, feeling the truth of his words. She realized that her day, which had started in fear, loneliness, and frustration, was now turning into something transformative. She had met someone who cared, someone who had acted without hesitation to help her, and someone who listened. It reminded her that even when life seemed impossible, there was always hope, always a chance for kindness to appear. The wheelchair repair took some time, giving Emma a chance to rest and reflect. She watched Jake and Hank work together, fixing the broken wheel, tightening screws, and adjusting the frame. The process fascinated her, the way tools worked, the precision of each movement, and the quiet teamwork that ensured the task was done right. She realized that help often came in many forms, sometimes practical, sometimes emotional, and sometimes simply by being present. By the time the wheelchair was finally fixed, the sky had darkened and stars were beginning to twinkle above. Emma tested the repaired wheelchair carefully, moving it forward and backward. It responded smoothly, rolling easily over the floor. A sense of triumph and relief washed over her. She could move again. She could regain her independence. She felt a surge of gratitude toward both Hank and Jake. Jake smiled at her. "There you go, good as new," he said. Emma's eyes welled up with tears again, but this time they were tears of joy, not fear. She felt a deep appreciation for this moment and for the people who had made it possible. She realized that even on the loneliest roads, help could appear, and it often came in the most unexpected ways. Before leaving, Emma and Jake talked about her next steps. He offered to drive her to her grandmother's house, ensuring she wouldn't have to face the road alone again. Emma accepted gratefully. As they prepared to leave, she felt a sense of connection that went beyond gratitude. She realized that kindness could spark hope, create trust, and even form lasting friendships. Jake had stopped on that lonely Texas road, and in doing so, he had changed the course of her day, and perhaps her life. As they drove toward her grandmother's house under the starry sky, Emma felt a quiet joy settle in her heart. She had faced fear, frustration, and uncertainty earlier, but now she was surrounded by care, support, and kindness. She understood that the world, even when harsh, held moments of beauty and generosity that could appear when least expected. And she knew that she would carry the memory of this day and the kindness of the cowboy who stopped for her for the rest of her life. The small town welcomed Emma and Jake with the soft glow of streetlights and the gentle hum of evening life. It was quiet and calm, but alive with the subtle energy of people winding down their day. Children's laughter drifted faintly from a nearby playground, and the smell of fresh bread and pastries floated through the air from a local bakery. Emma felt a mixture of relief and wonder. After the long, lonely hours on the road, this small town seemed like a haven. She could finally breathe, feeling the tension of the day slowly slipping away. Jake guided the truck carefully through the streets, pointing out landmarks and familiar places as they drove. "There's the school I went to when I was your age," he said, nodding toward a building with warm lights spilling from the windows. "And over there is the diner where everyone gathers in the mornings." Emma listened with curiosity, enjoying the sense of connection Jake had with this place. She liked how he spoke about it, like a home, not just a town. Finally, they arrived at a small mechanic's workshop tucked behind a row of shops. The exterior was modest, but inside, the space was clean and organized, with tools neatly arranged on walls and workbenches. A friendly man in his 40s came forward to greet them. He had a kind smile and a calm, reassuring presence. Jake introduced him as Hank, a mechanic who specialized in all sorts of repairs, from bicycles to wheelchairs. Hank's eyes softened when he saw Emma and her damaged wheelchair. "Looks like we've got a bit of work to do," Hank said gently. "Don't worry, we'll have you rolling again soon." Emma felt a wave of gratitude. After the long day of uncertainty and fear, she could finally see a solution to her problem. But more than that, she felt cared for, not just physically, but emotionally. The kindness and calmness of Jake and Hank made her feel safe, something she hadn't felt since being stranded on the road. Jake helped Emma out of the truck and guided her to the workshop floor, where she carefully positioned herself near the workbench. Hank knelt beside her wheelchair, examining it closely. "This wheel is completely bent and the frame is slightly off balance," he explained. "But we can fix it. It'll take a little time, but I promise you'll be back in your chair in no time." Emma watched as Hank worked with steady, practiced hands. The way he used his tools fascinated her. The precision, the care, and the patience it took to repair something important. She felt reassured knowing that her wheelchair was in capable hands. She could sense the pride Hank took in his work, and it made her feel confident that everything would be okay. While Hank worked, Jake stayed by her side. They continued talking, their conversation flowing easily as they had on the road. Emma shared more about her life, telling Jake about her love for stories and drawing, her dreams for the future, and the challenges she faced living with her disability. Jake listened attentively, offering encouragement and gentle guidance. "You're stronger than you realize," Jake said, smiling. "Life may be hard at times, but moments like this show how resilient you are. And remember, it's okay to accept help when it's offered. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." Emma nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She realized that part of her fear earlier had been not wanting to rely on anyone. But now, surrounded by people who genuinely wanted to help her, she felt a deep sense of comfort. The idea of accepting kindness no longer seemed like a weakness. It felt like a gift. As the repair continued, Hank chatted with Emma about her wheelchair, explaining what he was doing in simple terms. "This part here supports your weight," he said, pointing to the frame. "If it's not aligned properly, it can make it hard to move. I'm adjusting it so it's strong and balanced. You'll notice a big difference when it's done." Emma listened carefully, fascinated by the details. She asked questions, eager to understand how everything worked. Hank explained patiently, showing her how the wheel connected to the frame, how the screws held everything together, and why it was important to maintain it regularly. The attention to detail and the patience of these two men made her feel respected and empowered. As the evening went on, the workshop became a small hub of warmth and activity. A few locals stopped by, curious about what was happening. When they saw Emma and her wheelchair, they offered smiles, encouragement, and kind words. "You're going to be rolling again in no time," one man said. "Hang in there, young lady." Emma felt a sense of belonging she hadn't expected. She had been alone for so long, and now, surrounded by this small but caring community, she realized how powerful kindness and attention could be. During a short break, Emma sipped water and nibbled on a snack Jake had brought. She felt her energy returning, her spirits lifting with each passing moment. She looked around the workshop, taking in the sounds of tools, laughter, and quiet conversation. It was a world away from the empty, sun-beaten road where she had spent the day. She felt safe, supported, and even excited about the future. Jake and Emma talked about life in general while Hank worked. They shared stories about family, friends, and dreams for the future. Jake told Emma about growing up on the ranch, the animals he loved, and the lessons he had learned about responsibility and kindness. Emma found herself laughing at his stories, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in hours. The conversation was easy, comfortable, and reassuring. She realized that these moments of connection were just as important as the practical help she was receiving. As the wheelchair repair neared completion, Hank tested it carefully, ensuring everything moved smoothly and safely. Emma tried it out herself, rolling forward and backward across the workshop floor. It responded perfectly, gliding easily over the smooth surface. She couldn't help but smile, a feeling of triumph and relief washing over her. After a day filled with fear, uncertainty, and frustration, she could finally move again. "I can't thank you enough," Emma said to Hank, her voice filled with emotion. "You've not only fixed my wheelchair, but you've made me feel safe and cared for." Hank smiled kindly. "It's no problem at all, I'm just glad I could help." Jake ruffled her hair gently, smiling as well. "See, I told you everything would be okay. And look at you now, back on your wheels." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of joy, relief, and gratitude. She realized how much had changed since she had been alone on that lonely road hours earlier. She had gone from fear and isolation to warmth, care, and community. She felt the impact of genuine kindness in a way that touched her heart deeply. Before leaving, Jake offered to drive her to her grandmother's house so she wouldn't have to navigate the roads alone. Emma accepted gratefully. As they walked back to the truck, she felt a quiet strength within her. She realized that while she had faced fear and difficulty earlier in the day, the kindness of strangers had shown her that hope could appear in the most unexpected places. The drive to her grandmother's house was calm and comfortable. Emma rolled beside Jake in her repaired wheelchair, feeling a sense of security she hadn't felt in hours. The town lights passed by in a gentle blur, and the quiet conversation between them filled the space with warmth. She reflected on the day, the challenges, the fear, the loneliness, and now the relief and connection. It had been a journey of highs and lows, but it had also been a journey of learning and growth. When they finally arrived at her grandmother's house, Emma felt a sense of peace and completion. She had survived the day, received help when she needed it most, and experienced the power of human kindness. Her grandmother greeted her with open arms, hugging her tightly and expressing relief that she was safe. Emma realized that while her grandmother had always been a source of comfort, the kindness of strangers like Jake and Hank had also played an essential role in her day. Sitting in her grandmother's living room, Emma reflected on the events of the day. She thought about the empty road, the fear of being alone, and the small, unexpected miracles that had changed everything. She realized that kindness could appear anywhere, at any time, and that even strangers could become friends and allies in the moments we need them most. Emma felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for her repaired wheelchair, but also for the people who had shown her care and respect. She had learned an important lesson. Life could be unpredictable and challenging, but there was always hope, and there were always people willing to help. She smiled softly, knowing that this day, which had begun with tears and fear, would be a memory she would carry forever. As the night settled over the town, Emma felt safe, loved, and ready to rest. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she could face them with courage, resilience, and the knowledge that kindness existed in the world. And deep down, she understood that even on the darkest roads, light could appear in the form of strangers who chose to stop, care, and help. The night was quiet over the small Texas town, with stars twinkling gently in the clear sky. Emma sat on the porch of her grandmother's house, the repaired wheelchair parked beside her. She felt a calm she hadn't felt in a long time. The events of the day had been overwhelming, filled with fear, uncertainty, and loneliness. But now, after meeting Jake and Hank, she felt a new kind of strength, one that came not just from her own courage, but from the kindness of others. She thought back to that lonely stretch of road hours ago, where the sun had burned hot overhead, and the world had seemed so vast and uncaring. She remembered the panic, the helplessness, and the tears she had shed. And then she remembered Jake's truck, pulling over, the warm voice and the reassuring smile. In that moment, Emma realized something important. Life could change in an instant, sometimes because of the smallest gestures, a hand extended, a moment of patience, a choice to care. Her grandmother had gone inside to prepare some tea and snacks, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts. She traced her fingers along the smooth frame of her wheelchair, marveling at the way it moved easily beneath her. It felt like more than a repaired chair. It felt like freedom, a symbol of resilience, and a reminder that help often came when it was most needed. Emma smiled softly, feeling gratitude swell in her chest. As she sipped her tea, she thought about Jake. He had stopped on the road without hesitation, listened to her, treated her with respect, and helped her feel safe again. He hadn't just repaired a broken wheelchair, he had restored hope and trust. Emma realized that kindness could ripple through a person's life in ways that were impossible to measure. Sometimes it could heal more than physical needs. It could heal fear, loneliness, and despair. The next morning, Emma awoke with renewed energy. The sun shone softly through the windows, and she felt ready to face the day. Her grandmother had prepared breakfast, and the aroma of warm pancakes and fresh fruit filled the kitchen. Emma moved confidently in her wheelchair, grateful for the independence it offered her once more. She felt a deep appreciation for the small town, for her grandmother, and for the people who had helped her just the day before. Later, Jake stopped by to check on her. He had insisted not for recognition, but because he genuinely cared. Emma felt a rush of warmth seeing him approach. "Good morning, Emma," he said with a friendly grin. "Ready for a new day?" Emma nodded, smiling. "Yes, thanks to you," Jake laughed lightly. "I think the credit goes to both Hank and you. Hank fixed your chair and you've been brave through it all. I just did my part." They spent a little time talking, sharing stories, and laughing together. Emma felt a connection that went beyond gratitude. It was a genuine friendship, built on trust, understanding, and shared experience. She realized that sometimes the people who touch our lives most profoundly are strangers who appear at the right time, changing our world forever. As the day continued, Emma ventured into town with Jake, exploring the streets she had only glimpsed from the truck the previous evening. The local shopkeepers greeted her warmly, asking how she was feeling and offering small gestures of kindness. Emma realized that even in the ordinary rhythm of life, moments of care and attention could create a sense of belonging. She had been alone, afraid, and uncertain, and now she felt included, supported, and safe. They stopped by the park, and Emma enjoyed the feeling of moving freely in her repaired wheelchair, gliding smoothly across the paths. She laughed as she chased the shadows of birds flying overhead, feeling a sense of freedom she hadn't realized she missed so much. Jake walked beside her, offering encouragement and sharing in her joy. In that moment, the hardships of the previous day felt far away, replaced by a sense of possibility and hope. Emma reflected on the lessons she had learned. Life was unpredictable and challenges would come, but courage, resilience, and kindness could change the way she faced them. She realized that accepting help was not a weakness, it was a sign of strength and trust. She also understood that the world was filled with people willing to extend a hand when it mattered most. As the afternoon faded into evening, Emma and Jake sat on a bench overlooking the town. The sky was painted in shades of gold, pink, and purple, the sun casting long shadows across the streets. Emma felt a quiet happiness, a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. She looked at Jake and smiled. "You really changed my day," she said softly. Jake smiled back, tipping his cowboy hat slightly. "Sometimes it's the little things that matter most," he said. A smile, a kind word, or just showing up when someone needs help, you never know how much it can mean. Emma nodded, understanding fully. She had experienced it firsthand. She had cried alone on a road in Texas, and now her life felt different, brighter, fuller, and filled with hope. She felt a connection to Jake that was more than friendship. It was a reminder that even in moments of fear and uncertainty, human compassion could create lasting change. Over the next few days, Emma spent more time in town, exploring, talking to the people who had welcomed her, and enjoying the sense of community she had discovered. She even began sketching the streets, the fields, and the people she had met, capturing the beauty and warmth she now felt around her. Her drawings became a way to express the emotions she had carried, the fear, relief, joy, and hope, all woven together in simple lines and colors. Emma also wrote in her notebook, recounting the events of the past days. She described the moment she had been stranded on the road, the fear that had gripped her, and the tears that had threatened to overwhelm her. She wrote about Jake's kindness, Hank's skill, and the warmth of the small town that had embraced her. Writing helped her make sense of the experience and reminded her that even difficult moments could hold lessons and beauty. Through these reflections, Emma realized that life was full of unexpected challenges, but it was also full of people willing to help. She felt grateful not only for her repaired wheelchair, but for the human connections that had transformed her day. She knew that these experiences would stay with her forever, shaping the way she saw the world and the way she approached others with kindness and compassion. As the week progressed, Emma and Jake continued to meet, forming a bond that went beyond their initial encounter. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Emma realized that true friendship often comes from unexpected places, and that trust and understanding could grow quickly when people show genuine care. Jake had stopped on that lonely road without hesitation, and in doing so, he had become an important part of her life, a symbol of hope, kindness, and the power of human connection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma sat on the porch with her grandmother, looking out at the glowing lights of the town. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and peace. The challenges of the previous days had been significant, but the experiences had taught her important lessons about resilience, hope, and the kindness of others. She realized that even when life seemed overwhelming, there was always the possibility of change, growth, and connection. Emma thought about the road where it had all begun, the empty Texas highway that had once felt like the end of the world. She smiled softly, knowing that her tears had led to something unexpected and wonderful. A stranger had stopped, extended a hand, and changed the course of her day, and perhaps her life. She understood now that kindness was a force capable of transforming fear into courage, despair into hope, and loneliness into connection. As night settled fully over the town, Emma felt ready for the future. She had faced challenges, experienced fear, and felt isolated, but she had also encountered compassion, friendship, and generosity. She knew that she could face whatever came next with confidence, knowing that she was never truly alone. The world could be difficult, but it could also be beautiful, full of people willing to show care and kindness when it mattered most. Emma's story, which began with tears on a lonely Texas road, had become a story of hope, connection, and transformation. She had learned that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples that changed lives, and that sometimes, strangers could become the most important people in your story. She had discovered courage within herself, the strength to accept help, and the joy of trusting others. As she finally settled into bed that night, Emma felt a warmth in her heart she would never forget. She had cried alone, been afraid, and faced the unknown, but she had also been helped, understood, and cared for. The cowboy who had stopped, the mechanic who had repaired her wheelchair, and the small town that had welcomed her had all become part of her life story. A reminder that even in the darkest moments, light could appear.